When you hear this sound at the start of the match, how do you feel? Back in 2016, you would probably feel fear, excitement.
Yeah, he used to be
and
really
you
good.
Knew you were
Really
going
good.
to have a very intense and fun game. But nowadays, most of the people probably will think.
Yeah, this is a side thing, and he's probably going to talk about it, but like, Billy used to be one of the best characters in the game. Like, Billy was actually like a really good character. Like he like, you know, there was less characters in the game in general, so that's like not a lot, right? It's not a lot, but like he was one of the better characters in the game for a hot minute. Top 3 at one point, yeah, and how the mighty have fallen.
They are lucky it's not another Albert Wesker.
Yep.
What happened to one of the best killers in Dead by Daylight? The one killer that most survivors feared and that most of the community agreed was perfectly balanced and had an amazing power. Today, we're going to take a look at
it was just his add-ons, really.
Hillbilly in Dead by Daylight.
It was just his add-ons, right?
Let's begin from where it all started. The first day that Dead by Daylight was officially released. When Dead by Daylight first came out back in 14th of June 2016,
that's so long
the choice of killers was very limited, as you could only choose between Trapper, Wraith, and Hillbilly. One quick note that I think is important to know is that the game was playable before the official release, but only Trapper was available in the beta. So for those more experienced players, Wraith and Hillbilly already looked more attractive than the Trapper. Out of these killers, Trapper was the most basic, as all you had to do is put traps around the map. It was a very slow playstyle that rewarded patience and planning ahead.
It was also one of the only ways to shut down some of the most absurd setups in the game. Was to put the traps down and turn them off, because some of the setups were disgusting. But you know, you hear that every single one of these React videos that talk about the history of the game.
Could scare the survivors and ambush them in generators or while they're healing. Hillbilly, on the other hand, offered a completely new experience. Speed and lethality, two of the things that people nowadays know are features of the strongest killers in Dead by Daylight.
Yep.
With a very
I've never thought about that. That's true. Like out of the original characters, like now we see like every character has like aggressive speed and anti-chase. But like Billy is kind of like the first killer to really have like true map mobility. Like actual map mobility. Because Wraith didn't, because you know, the way he exists now with his built-in windstorm, that wasn't a thing. And Trapper, you know, obviously only set traps, and those could be broken back then. So it's like he was kind of the only character, or the first character, to really be able to have macro control over the map, which is crazy to think about.
Concept: Hillbilly could use a chainsaw to start a very fast sprint to cover the entire map, and also if you catch a survivor, you down them instantly. Remember that during this time, there were no other killers that had the power to actively down a survivor, as only Noed and Trapper's traps could do that.
Yep.
He was extremely fast compared to the other two, as Wraith was not as fast as he is currently in the live game.
I know my things.
And finally, there were no indoor maps, so every map was
That's
good
true.
for Hillbilly. Having a killer chase you with a literal chainsaw with incredible...
Yeah, and he'll probably talk about this, but like, I just want to say this, like, and like, with my chest, that is the thing that I hate the most. Hillbilly is my secondary character, I would say. I play most of the roster. But like characters that I have a lot of hours on, it's Huntress and Hillbilly. Those are like the two I have ignore that. I've spent the most time in. Sunk was the word I was looking for. Sunk the most time into. Sunk, whatever. Anyways. It's mostly the maps. Because, like, the more and more maps they release, and the sloppier and sloppier the collision gets, and every map that they remake also has the collision super sloppy, like, bumping now feels worse than ever. Because bumping is going to happen just because. Like, even the most perfect Billies in the world just bump off things. It's just a thing that happens. But, you know, now it's super frustrating. I feel like one of the easiest things you could do is just, like, make heavy clutch, like maybe not the whole 30%. Possibly, but maybe just do you know, rat liver, heavy clutch, and give like 15% base kit of just like to not collide into things, because the collision is too awful in this game. The collision is just too bad. The collision is just too terrible in this game, and that's really what holds him back. Because bumping is way, way, way too punishing. So that's kind of like the two routes you have. It's either you give him partial bump base kit, or you give him partial heavy clutch base kit. So either you shorten the collision partially, or you make bumping, you give him bump cooldown partially. So either, like, just some way to deal with the bad collision in the game. Like, it's okay if the game's collision is sloppy, because it doesn't affect most characters. But with Billy, it could literally kill a whole match for you. It could ruin a whole match for you. And that's just like, it's night and day compared to the other characters in the game.
Full speed was a very scary and intense time for survivors, but everyone liked Hillbilly. All of the survivors had a lot of fun playing against him, and the killers noticed something special about Hillbilly. He was incredibly powerful and incredibly fun to play as. Just like in any other game, the pros started to work and reach the skill ceiling of Hillbilly, inventing new mechanics
I love the way he
and
says his
techniques.
name. It's so endearing.
And this is how Hillbilly's first tech was invented, the flick. Hillbilly had an interesting mechanic, where the hitbox of his chainsaw did not stop at the end of the dash. Instead,
Really?
it continued for some small time, so you could flick at the end of a chainsaw dash
That's
and
cool.
hit survivors in very impressive angles. This, however, didn't last long, as behavior fixed it because they considered it as an unintended mechanic.
That's the old maps I do
Nowadays,
too. They
the
look so
hook
much
tech
prettier.
of Blight is the closest thing that we have, as the dev said that it is an unintended mechanic. Imagine the outrage that it would cause now.
That's still in the game, by the way. That's still in the game. They said this months and months and months and months ago. That hug tech wasn't intended. We're going to be taking out. It's been patch after patch after patch after patch, and it's still in the game. Did they forget? They don't know how to fix it? Did they say that? Did they actually say that somewhere, that they don't know how to get rid of it? Because it is weird that they said, you know, Mandy literally said officially, like, hey, we don't want this in the game anymore. And then it just hasn't been changed for months. Never admit that? Okay, so that's just conjecture. Okay, I thought they had literally said, like, we don't know how to. That would have been depressing. But yeah, it's just like, I don't, like, if they hate it, why is it still there? I don't know. Anyways.
Because that was basically what happened back then. People said that nobody asked for this was not necessary. Well, those were the main complaints against this nerf to Hillbilly, and it was the first ever nerf to him. The Hillbilly community, however, couldn't stop. They started to find new mechanics and things that could boost the power and strength.
Yeah, both are dumb, Manda. Both are stupid. Like, here's the problem. With stuff like that, where, like, it's like 360 Oni hits, or hug tech on Blight, first thing is, like, they are deceptively easy to learn. Sometimes I hug tech by accident, just by, like, I don't know how to hug tech as Blight. Sometimes I'll just do it. Like, I'm just like, okay, hit my face on the wall, and then look down, and then I skid around it. It's not that difficult. Blight's just convince you it's difficult. Same thing with the Oni flick. Like, I could probably sit down and probably learn the Oni flick in, like, an hour or two, if that. Probably less. Like, it's not actually that hard. And the problem with it is because, like, you can't react to something that you don't, like, you have no concept of what's about to happen, right? Because if the Oni's, like, quite literally not even looking at you, your brain goes, okay, well, he can't hit me from there. But, like, he can, right? Even though he shouldn't be able to, he can. So you have to account for somehow being hit when the character's quite literally not even looking your direction. And it's the same thing with, like, you know, Blight hug teching against the wall while you're in a loop. It's like, some Blights, you know, that you have to, like, play the loop normally. But if you hug tech Blight, you got to be like, okay, well, he can, like, hit me from, like, a 270-degree angle. And I just have to be prepared for something that may or may not happen. You know, like, it's just like, it's stuff that, like, does not give you basically any wiggle room to, like, dodge or at least anticipate a dodge. That is just, like, it's just dirty. It's just gross, right? Like, you trust me, I'll be the first person to tell you that I want both the sides interacting as much as possible. But I don't think not being able to anticipate something like that counts as interaction. That's just my opinion, though.
Strength of Hillbilly in the meta. That was how they found out that binding the keys Q and E of the keyboard in order to turn was better than just turning with the mouse. and combining this.
You guys, I don't do that. I have Q and E set to do that, but that's mostly when I play Oni. I use my mouse when I curve. That's interesting. Weird. Yeah, I just do it just naturally. I just like fling my mouse. I don't Q and E. That's interesting.
With the turning rate add-ons was how the Drift Billy build was invented. However, the true problem began with two builds that most people will know the names of,
Yep.
Instasaw and Crack Billy. And these two had one add-on that was the culprit of
Yeah,
all of it,
he just needed an add-on pass.
Carburetor Tuning Guide. This might have been the most busted green add-on.
Sharky is rating me, rating me, rating me, rating me, rating me. Sharky, hello! I was just telling him about your wonderful adventure you made up north, and you weren't a sauce person, so you actually did not thoroughly enjoy canes. Like, he's already, like, Oni is already, like, one of the, he's top 10 characters in the game. So I don't know why he needs that. You know, and same thing with, like, Blight, right? He's the second strongest character in the game. He doesn't need that. Neither of them need that. And they would still be top 10 characters in the game, right? So it's just like, whatever.
Game, as it provided with a lot of benefits and not a single downside. Just by equipping this add-on, you had less charge time, less penalty when bumping into things, less chainsaw cooldown, less noise with the chainsaw.
It just did everything, you know? It just did too much.
Without a single downside.
Yeah, it just did too much.
Players combined this add-on with the Prime Charger bulb, and the time to start the chainsaw was incredibly absurd. Just to show you a comparison, this is Hillbilly's actual chainsaw rate. This is Hillbilly's charge rate at best, with one very situational charge speed add-on.
Yeah, after
and
being
a
blinded.
purple gravity add-on that reduces Hillbilly's base speed. And this
yeah, it was a green too, which is
Instasaw Baby
relatively cheap.
back in the days with no conditions or situational add-ons. Oh, and did I forget to mention that Tinker worked completely different before its rework?
Yeah.
So it's stacked
Old
with
Tinker.
these add-ons as well. Back then, Tinker
Machine gun
increased the
hunters and
power
stuff
of the
like that?
charged
Oh my
add-ons for
god.
your ability. So killers like Hillbilly could charge the saw faster, Trapper could put his traps faster, Wraith could uncloak faster, Huntress could throw her hatchets faster. In fact, Machine Gun Huntress was a thing thanks to pre-rework Tinker. However, that was the problem of the perk. Due to how it was designed, this meant that every single killer had to have a charge power, which limits.
Yeah, and it's hard to use chainsaw on so many of these maps, remakes, and new remaps. So people are more encouraged to M1.
Get any use of Tinker at all. And just as an extra fun fact, if Tinker wasn't changed to this day, then the reworked Freddy would be able to teleport to gens faster. But anyways, this meant that behavior had to completely change Tinker, and thus Hillbilly got a small nerf to its charging power. But the Instasaw build was still crazy strong. However, nothing compares to Crack Billy, the strongest build you could have on him. Crack Billy combined the power of the Carburetor Tuning Guide and the Doom Engravings, which increased the speed of his chainsaw at the cost of chainsaw charging. However, even with this penalty, the chainsaw charging speed...
Sharky, you didn't have to do that. Homie, thank you. Might be crazy, but I don't mind Crackbilly as much as Instasaw, but Instasaw, you really just ride your ass for an easy down. See, that's what I've always heard, man. I always heard that, because like I wasn't around, well, I guess I was for like... Yeah, I actually was around for that, because I played before the Hillbilly update. Like, I've always heard that people, like... I've heard that people, like, always, like, you know, hated Instasaw more than anything. But he's saying, like, Crackbilly's worse, which is interesting.
Was still faster than the combo we have in the live game, and it was constant, with no requirements. This build was extremely easy to use on Hillbilly, and it made him way stronger than his base kit. He could move across the map faster, he could down survivors in loops where his base kit wouldn't allow him to,
especially just want to play Hillbilly.
Still could
we may be double survivor.
Insta-saw you if you were in a dead zone. And the thing about this build is that the Carburetor Tuning Guide even if you missed a chainsaw accidentally, your bump speed would recover extremely fast. This was the best Hillbilly build in the game.
That was like near instant.
One of the
Hello?
strongest killers in Dead by Daylight ever, possibly rivaling Blight and Spirit in terms of power nowadays.
Oh my god, that's like no, like literally like
tier list as the best killer in Dead by Daylight next to Nurse. In fact, some of the players rated Hillbilly even higher than her. But the thing is, most of the community found this fair. While Crack Billy was very strong in chases, the design on Hillbilly's power offered a lot of counterplay to the survivors. It was very fun to get in chases against Hillbillies that tried to chainsaw you, and the reward of hitting a snipe as Hillbilly or getting that curve
that bump
was
time
one
is
of
so
the
short.
best feelings in Dead
That's
by Daylight.
crazy.
That was the case until the dreaded 4.1.
That was 2 months after I started playing.
This is one of the most controversial patches in Dead by Daylight, as it's still hated to this day by the Hillbilly community.
Yeah.
It's the famous patch that introduced the cannibal reworks as well as some tweaks to Hillbilly.
Yeah, Restful
The funny thing
Sharky,
is
I
that
appreciate you.
according to behavior themselves in the developer update post, they were happy with the way Hillbilly performed, and they even said that for survivors, there is enough counterplay to make Hillbilly one of the most interesting and fun killers to play as and against in the game. The next line of this blog post says that they are only going to do small mechanics for Hillbilly.
But they completely overhauled him entirely.
Any of the already present in the game mechanics you can have on him, but they introduced a new one instead, the overheat mechanic.
Yeah, they completely overhauled him.
Before you could chainsaw for as much as you want, and you had almost no cooldown after using it. Now Hillbilly has to keep track of the heat that the chainsaw produces. So now traversing the map comes with a cost, as well as using the chainsaws in more complicated loops. For many people, this was already enough to kill the Hillbilly, but behavior decided to put a nail in the coffin as well by completely massacring almost the entirety of the add-ons of Hillbilly and replacing them with some weird, gimmicky and niche add-ons.
So many of his add-ons are just completely useless. Like, actually completely useless. Like, oh, this happens when you're blinded, or oh, this happens while your chainsaw's overheated. They're like these things that happen maybe once a match, if that. That you have a whole add-on slot dedicated to something that may not even happen in a match? Like, come on. That's not just like literally without the intention, like without the intention to like literally ruin the character. I don't know how they thought any of that was a good idea. Like, unless they were intentionally trying to bury the character 6 feet under and make him unplayable, I do not know why on God's green earth they ever thought that that would ever be a good idea to have like while you're blinded or while you're overheated as add-ons. Like, and the pig house gloves, the one I keep referring to, the one that's like while you're overheated you get bonuses, is a purple. It's a purple add-on. That's expensive. You can get an infantry belt. You can get impaling wire on Pinhead. There are great purples in this game. But his is while you're overheated, you get bonuses, which may not even happen in a match if you're careful. Like, holy moly, what were they thinking?
Add-ons like the Big Buckle, which reduce the terror radius.
Yeah, this one too. This one's stupid.
While the chainsaw is overheated. The new heat add-ons, which took most of his arsenal, and one add-on that will always be remembered as the worst add-on in history of the game, Mother's Helpers, which increased Hillbilly speed by 0.2 meters per second while a flashlight is shining on you. You heard me right. Only when a survivor is aiming a flashlight on you, you would move a minuscule amount faster. Who designed this add-on? For most of the people,
Missile DVD, I'm sorry.
Hillbilly. This single patch is the reason why Hillbilly got completely ruined. Just ask any killer main nowadays, and most of them will say that the overheat mechanic is the worst balance change ever. So
this is the thing I always hear too, is like, you know, well, will you ever actually realistically overheat? And I'll tell you, even in matches where I don't overheat, I am making like firm decisions in my head to not go for certain chainsaws because I'm noticing my overheats going up. Right? Like, even if I'm not actually overheating, it's affecting my gameplay either way. So this whole idea of like, oh, well, you know, sometimes you even actually overheat, you know, that's stupid. Because I'm noticing that I'm getting close to overheat and making different decisions and gameplay decisions because of it. So it is affecting my gameplay.
Is it just the overheat mechanic and the add-on removal the culprits of Hillbilly's demise? Was it really that bad? I actually don't think so, because I think Hillbilly got it even worse. In fact, I would say that most of the community just says that the overheat mechanic was enough to completely ruin Hillbilly, but I disagree. Even if today the overheat mechanic was completely removed, Hillbilly would still be bad compared to the past.
Very
and
true.
The sad reason
it's
why
not the only reason he's bad.
This nerf
It's the biggest reason.
Was even worse than you might have expected.
It's a big one, but
First
it's not
of
the
all,
only problem.
Hillbilly got another mechanic nerf introduced to him when they added the overheat, which I don't see many people talking about, and that is this weird scream he does when he starts the chainsaw dash. Most people might think that this is just a small change to give Hillbilly some more uniqueness and personality, and you might be right. However, it is also a slight nerf to his mechanics, as it is now a way for survivors to know just with an audio cue when the Hillbilly has started his chainsaw dash.
That's very true. I didn't even think about that.
Nerf, to be fair.
I didn't even think about that. That's true.
What absolutely killed Hillbilly are map offerings and the new map additions to the game. The last map introduced that was favorable for the Hillbilly is Dead Dog Saloon, as the next map was Midwich. And it is debatable whether this map is good
maps are just bad for him in general.
Specifically, but what is non-debatable is that RPD, Eyrie of Crows, the new Haddonfield rework, and Garden of Joy are some of the worst maps ever for Hillbilly. Especially this last map with the introduction of the famous Garden of Joy.
All the remakes are bad too. All the remade maps.
Impossible to use the chainsaw of Hillbilly on this map. If you don't believe me, just ask any Hillbilly or Leatherface main. With no good add-ons for Hillbilly and an overheat mechanic that hinders new players trying to learn him, as well as the new unfavorable survivor-sided maps where Hillbilly is basically unplayable on, this has made a lot of killers to simply drop him and move on to the next killers. Hillbilly is a very interesting killer that requires a lot of learning and takes a lot of skill to master, more so than the nurse, I would argue. But what is the point in playing and learning
a character that's not even that good? That's like B minus C plus at best.
Coming with every update in Dead by Daylight. Why play Hillbilly if the nurse is free? Why play Hillbilly if the Blight can make some amazing plays with less punishment? This has made it so only the fanatics of the chainsaw are the ones that still play Hillbilly to this day.
We'll probably play him after this actually. I'm in the mood.
They themselves admit that Hillbilly is a neglected killer. In fact, he does not even appear in the new banner.
That's what I said! They removed him for Hag! They removed him for Hagatha! Like a character that has like an abysmal pick rate. They might as well put twins up there. Like what? Why? These are all your original characters, and you took out Hillbilly for freaking Hagatha? Like, how you could not be signaling more how much you hate this character besides this right up here. Like, it would be funny. It would be funny if it would actually be hilarious if it wasn't actually happening before our very eyes. Behavior hates this character. Like, oh my god.
In any official collaboration ever. That is the true sad story of one of the most fun killers to ever be in Dead by Daylight.
Yeah, it is, like I said, like somebody who's, you know, like I secondary the character, like I like him a lot. Like what he's like, maps and the collision are terrible. My two main changes would be one of two things. So my first thing would be, like I said in the middle of the video, either make bump cooldown less base kit, or have heavy clutch be partially base kit. Like, have the collision, because they've shown with heavy clutch that they can adjust the collision to be better with an add-on. So they can adjust the collision, just add some of that base kit to this character. Have him have partial clutch, or have his bumps not mean as much. or not be as punishing. Step 2, speed up his chainsaw. Give him like one partial engraving base kit, so he can actually use his other funny gimmick add-ons without having to rely on engravings. Because every killer, every Billy player is at least using Doom, at least using one Doom engraving. They might be doing low pro, they might be doing the other engraving as well. But basically, if you want to be good, you want results, you need to have at least one engraving on for the most part, right? So give him that partially in. And if you want the full speed, you want to go crazy, just still have the other ones. That would be my 2 main things on how to make the character actually like fun and playable again. Engraving of the Deathslinger, stop. Stop it. Quit it. Yeah, those are the things that I would want the most for this character, because they have, unfortunately, incredibly hosed this character. And it kind of like astounds me that like they're okay with Nurse being the way she is for literal years, but like Hillbilly can't, like they just elbow dropped Billy into the ground and won't give him literally anything. It's actually upsetting that they are so aggressively against having Billy be good, but like there's characters like Nurse, Blight that just have really abusable, frustrating things that we were talking about earlier that they just like refuse to address or change. And it's just like, I don't get it. I don't get it, dude. Secret engravings? Like a literal engraving, not like the add-on, you goober. Jeez. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like that those would be the best 2 changes to make him better. But yeah, I don't think that's gonna work. I don't think they'll ever do that, unfortunately. I feel like that's a pipe dream at this point. It'll never happen. But that's my dream world. That's what I would want to have happen.